Hi, welcome to the session, the first session of the Trailblazers conference. Maayan, the news editor and head of online content and strategy at the Jerusalem Post. And I have with me two very impressive people. First, we have Dr. Kristen DiCerbo. She's the Chief Learning Officer at Khan Academy, a nonprofit dedicated to providing a free world-class education to anyone, anywhere. In this role, she is responsible for driving and communicating the teaching and learning strategy for Khan Academy's programs, content, and products in order to improve student and teacher engagement and outcomes. Dr. DiCerbo's work has consistently been focused on embedding what we know from education research about how people learn into the digital learning experiences. Prior to her role at Khan Academy, she was Vice President of Learning Research and Design at Pearson, served as a research scientist supporting teaching and learning in the Cisco networking academies, and worked as a school psychologist in the Arizona School District. She publishes and speaks to a variety of audiences about educational technology, learning, and learning science research. Kristen received her bachelor's degree from Hamilton College and a master's degree and Ph.D. in educational psychology in Arizona State University. We also have with us John Schwartz, who serves as edX head of global business development. He is part of the team that drives edX's engagement with prospects and partners, including foundations, NGOs, corporations, and governments, both local and international. John has extensive experience in Asia and in the Middle East. John's career has been focused on driving business development for companies in a variety of industries, including education tech, automotive, pharmaceutical, publishing, and finance. He also has experience in strategic marketing and branding with an emphasis on experiential design. Most recently, John was a board member and chief strategist at Hudson & Cutler, a technology-driven marketing and communications company. He's a graduate of Harvard and William Smith colleges. Welcome to both of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I want to just jump right in because we don't have a lot of time. And Kristen, I wanted to start with you. If you could tell us a little bit about your role and what you do over at Khan Academy, and also how that shifted when coronavirus started hitting the fan, back in February, March.
Absolutely, and it's great to be here today. So my role as the Chief Learning Officer is to take what we know from education research and make sure that the content and the pieces that we're creating and putting out at Khan Academy take advantage of everything we know from education research so that we are most likely to improve student outcomes. So that means as we think about how do people learn, what do we know from really decades of research about learning, and how can we translate that into the digital world where we have lots of students now trying to engage and learn all kinds of things in the digital world. And so what we found with the outbreak of the coronavirus, first of all, was of course a huge increase in demand for Khan Academy services. So we provide supplemental instruction and practice. But as the coronavirus happened and students moved online, we became a little bit more core and a little bit less supplemental as students were engaged, looking for places, and teachers were looking for places where they could get some of that instruction and practice in a coordinated way. So that was the first thing, was just the upswing in traffic. And then the other piece, as we started looking around and thinking, had a second to think what's going to happen in the fall, what is this looking like? We see a lot of students who are likely going to have even more of what they call a summer slide. Even in regular times, we see over the summer, over that break, that there's some loss of learning over time, particularly with students from less privileged backgrounds. And so given that also we had students who didn't get a full experience in the last couple of months of the year, I wanted to think about how we could address some of those gaps. So one of the things that I did in my role was thinking about how we could create something that would help students fill those gaps. So we have something that we call Get Ready for Grade Level courses, where students can engage in the course. So say you're going into 6th grade. If you take the Get Ready for 6th grade course, what we did was go through the 6th grade material and figure out what are the prerequisite skills that you need to be successful for 6th grade. So the Get Ready For course covers those skills and concepts so that when you do get to 6th grade in the fall, hopefully you are ready for those. Ultimately, schools can actually use them in the beginning of the year to get everyone kind of up to the same level of where they need to be.
Right. That's fascinating. That sounds amazing. And now, John, I also want to ask you, because it's interesting, Kristen works with students and you are working with professionals. We know that we really learn our whole lives, and many professionals are looking to what you do at edX in order to get the professional training that they need online. So talk a little bit about how that thing started to change for you when coronavirus came to the forefront.
Well, first of all, I have to say, thank goodness for Khan Academy. Having 3 children, 13 and under, Khan has filled a very important need now. But I think edX went into the same kind of solution-oriented orientation that Khan did. We quickly pivoted from being in shock and awe to figuring out how could we supplement learning to government employees, to enterprise workers who have been transitioned out of the workforce, for university students going back in the fall. And we knew the last 8 years, we had a very powerful educational tool with incredible content, of course, backed by Harvard and MIT, that could fill a gap. So we didn't have a long time like other industries to really think about what was going on in terms of the pandemic. The entire organization, in less than 3 days went online. And as Kristen said, we had 5-fold in registration. And in addition, like Khan, we provided tens of thousands of free courses to all types of learners, university students that need to complete their semester, government employees, enterprises, NGOs, not-for-profit. So, unfortunately, it brought the future into the present, but both Khan Academy and edX had solutions that were tested and tried, and most importantly, scalable.
So let's actually talk about that, a product that is tested and tried. Kristen, going back to you, it was very interesting reading up on Khan Academy and this idea of research-informed design across product, content, and programs. Can you define those terms a little bit and tell me how they fit into the e-learning program?
Sure. So I'll start with content, which is the video you see, or the article you read, or the questions that you take. And so we know a lot from learning science. For instance, if you're going to make a video, how to balance the narration with the visuals you see, with text on the screen, and what that balance should be and how they interplay with each other. So things like that are the ways that we use learning science to help inform videos. When you write questions, think about how do you give hints to the questions? How do you give explanations for wrong answers? How do you give feedback on those questions? So all of that is the content piece and how we bring learning science into that. And then the product is really the whole piece that lots of people will interact with online. So that will include things like the motivation system. So when you think about the mastery learning approach that Khan takes, part of that is thinking about how you level up to achieve ultimately achieve mastery on a skill. Well, all of the motivation systems between that are based on what we know from learning science. So that's the product includes the content, but also includes other pieces in things like motivation. And then program is actually thinking about things like how we support educators that are using Khan Academy in their classrooms or trying to use it with their students. And so what are the things that we can wrap around both training for teachers on how to use Khan Academy, reports and reporting so that they can see how their students are doing and where they're using it. So all of those things, particularly when we think about reports and reporting and how we support instructional decisions that teachers are making in their classrooms, are how we bring in some of the research related to that as well.
It's really fascinating. And a question for both you and John. It's interesting, Khan Academy was founded in 2008. As you mentioned, edX has been around. You had a product that existed. And, it feels like there has always been this sort of push to digitize, but schools and in general in education, we didn't really do it. It was sort of more piecemeal, here and there, and very innovative schools that were wrapping their heads around this. But now Corona is different. Do you think that things are going to change this coming school year and then even a little bit more into the future?
No question. And they've already changed. And again, we like to make positives out of really difficult situations. And this has made everybody, address what their learning needs will be currently and in the future. And online really fits that gap in so many ways. I mean, I think we both believe in the importance of in-person learning, But clearly, in times like this is an invaluable tool to so many millions of people around the world to get them, through and to progress their lifelong learning goals. And we've talked to so many institutions that were completely reluctant prior to this that have now, again, unfortunately been forced to be part of this new uncomfortable world. And I'm sure Kristen and I give the same kind of guidance. It's okay to be uncomfortable. If you're not, that's where the problem begins. And it's amazing to see, again, government officials, presidents, ministers, chancellors, deans, elementary school teachers really stand up and embrace the changes instead of fighting against it.
Wow, amazing. Now, I hate to use such a large word, but I think it maybe is necessary here. Do you think that we might see what I would call a digital learning revolution, if you can call it that? A generation of people who learn differently?
I hesitate to say learn differently, because there's many foundations of learning that are always going to be true, and there are lots of things that aren't going to change. What I do think that we're going to see is a better mix of in-person and digital, and recognizing the things that digital helps us do. So, for instance, giving quick, detailed feedback in real time to students. That's something that digital can do really well, and it's hard for a teacher with 30 students in a classroom to give that kind of feedback to each of them. So if we can start, if the revolution is thinking about instead how to combine in-person and digital in really effective ways, that's the revolution that I hope is coming, and I think we're moving towards.
And it's an enhanced revolution. I mean, people that have gone online that were somewhat reluctant have really started to see the value. I mean, on the edX platform, every course has a global discussion forum. So this is not a solitary exercise. This is something that you can share globally with every culture and country in real time, 24/7, and share ideas and information and answers and get immediate feedback. And so it really is an eye opener, and it really expands the lifelong learner in so many intrinsic ways that you don't necessarily get in all in person.
Fascinating. Speaking of international, John, maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're seeing. You work across the globe, and this is something we know was hitting in the United States, for example. We talked about it here in Israel. What have you seen worldwide? Is this a worldwide shift to online learning?
Yeah, there's no question. I think everybody knows that's watching right now, in a flip of a switch, and I literally, like a light switch, in less than 2 weeks, my kid's school, your kid's school, every government virtually went remote. So I don't think there's a single populace of people or learners anywhere in the world that weren't immediately affected, no matter what their stage in life is. So that gave Kristen and I, a real momentum, because people were in need of continuing their studies. Again, whether in a university environment or elementary school or enterprise, we gave them a tool set that they could immediately use and lessen the disruption. So I absolutely believe it's here, but I believe it's here in a very positive way. And I think the response that we're all getting, no matter who we're serving, overall is appreciative, and to see the immediate feedback that we're getting from learners already, is really, I think, why Kristen and I get up in the morning, because we have real purpose now.
Amazing. So I wanted to ask you, what is the one element that you do think will profoundly change within the next few years? If you could take that question.
I think in the next few years, we are going to see more and more of this combination of in-person and digital, and we'll fundamentally see more of the social aspects in learning also be included in the digital experience. Right now, a lot of the digital world is still very much an individual student in working with a single computer, but the more we can connect those and network, the more we're going to take advantage of a lot of the social learning aspects that are so important to better student learning outcomes.
Fabulous. And John, what about you?
Oh, I agree. I think having the benefit of both worlds, really play off each other. And of course, it'll be up to the individual schools and enterprises to find that right balance. But now the balance is here, or at least that shift to this new tool is here. And from what we can see already in less than 4 months, they're using it very strategically, very efficiently. We all know it's cost effective. So, I think this concept of a blended environment, we hear omni-channel, we hear blended, hybrid, but to have two really powerful ways for learners to learn, no matter who they are, is really a game changer globally.
Amazing. Sounds almost too good to be true. And I guess that's why I also have to ask about the challenges. We talked about how everybody in the first couple of months jumps on board and has really, has seen success and is looking toward hopefully more in the fall. But tell me what has been the biggest challenge thus far? John, why don't you start?
I think there's a number of challenges. I think, simple things like integrating content into an existing learning management system that perhaps wasn't being utilized, or figuring out how to assign courses if you've only been used to in-person. I mean, these sound so commonplace to like Kristen and I, because we do it so much, but for everybody else, it's a very foreign, very challenging, and very uncomfortable position. So our roles at edX and Con is really helping people onboard, help them find the right content, number one, help them disseminate that content in a way that they can track learner progress, help fill gaps coming into the next school year, figuring out how we can supplement existing content into a curriculum that by most design was completely in person. Those are all things that are happening simultaneously, and we're working through those challenges.
Got it. And Kristen,
I think
30 seconds.
It's also important to remember that we are still in a world where not everyone has adequate, reliable internet access. And we are in danger of creating a larger digital divide than we've already had in the past. And so that need to help support learners and find ways to get everyone connected is really important.
Amazing. Now we do have a question for the audience, wondering about whether one of you can speak about engagement level in a completely online environment where it could be a recording, for example. How does engagement work in that kind of situation?
We think it's really important to think about active learning. And so in fact, in learning science, there's a continuum from passive to active to what we call constructive, which is when students are actually creating something, to interactive, when you're interacting with other people. And there's good evidence that actually students' learning and engagement increases as you go across that continuum. So what we want to think is building online experiences where students are active and creating things and interacting with other students, not where they're sitting and just watching a video, kind of passively ingesting that information.
And I think that's always been, kind of the misconception about online learning, that it's a very solitary exercise where people are huddled in their rooms with the lights off, just staring at their computer. It's a very engaging, immersive environment, and that engagement grows. There's live Q&A sessions with professors. Like I said, there's the discussion forums. There's all kinds of ways for people to interact with others in addition to the content that's so important to their learning.
2 minutes left. So I want to have each of you take a chance, 30, 45 seconds each, to just tell us the vision. So we talked about one thing that will change next year. What's going to change in the next 2 years? What is that dream? Kristen, you start.
I think the dream is to continue to think about how we can make those engaging and active and interesting experiences more and more. So I think there's lots of room to grow. I've done a good bit of work on thinking about game-based learning and game-based assessment and how we can move into and take advantage of all of the things we know about engagement with gaming and apply that more to learning and understanding students. So I think that's an exciting place where we could think about going and moving into the future.
Amazing. Yeah. And John, what about you?
I think from where, in my perspective and the myriads of people that our team interacts with, it's really getting them comfortable. It's really providing the proper explanation about why this tool is so unique and so impactful and can really change people's lives and the outcomes of people's lives.
Amazing. Well, we're coming to the end, and I just want to thank both of you so much for being here. Both you, Dr. DiCerbo, and also you, John Schwartz, so much for being here. I just think we better hope for interactive experience, as you said, going forward, and that we should all be able to have both frontal and online learning as we move forward into a healthier environment sometime in the next year. Thank you both so much.
Thank you very much for having us.